Thanks for joining us on the program today. I'm Amarachi Mubani. Mali's slain Defense Minister General Sadio Kamara has been buried. The solemn ceremony held today at the Military Engineering Parade Ground in the center of the capital, Bamako, under tight security. The ceremony was attended by thousands of people, including the leader of Mali's military junta, Assimi Goïta. Kamara was given full military honors with a military parade. General Kamara was killed on Saturday, April 25th, in a car bomb attack targeting his residence in Kaiti, a garrison town near Bamako. The 47-year-old died on Saturday when a car bomb targeted his home. His wife and two granddaughters were killed in the attack, which was part of a two-day offensive launched by jihadist militants and Tuareg separatists against ruling military junta and the Russian paramilitary fighters supporting it. Kamara was widely seen as the mastermind behind the junta's pivot to Russia after it cut ties with its traditional Western allies, including former colonial power France. And civic leaders and activists all gathered in the Malian capital to honor the Defense Minister Sadio Kamara and to express their support for the armed forces following the attacks over the weekend by the terrorists. While gathering, the demonstrators later chanted slogans and lowered flags to half-masts, not just for Kamara, but as a tribute to those who were killed during the attacks. Authorities have condemned the violence and pledged to pursue those responsible, urging citizens to remain vigilant and rely on official information. In the meantime, Burkina Faso's junta has tightened security in the capital, Ouagadougou, in the wake of coordinated attacks in its neighbor and ally, Mali. On Tuesday, the country's security ministry announced the launch of an operation aimed at strengthening security across the country and called for vigilance. It also called on people to report any suspicious behavior, particularly around sensitive infrastructure such as military barracks, airports, administrative buildings, and other installations of national importance. A second police source said units have been sent to strategic intersections in the capital. The measures came after the unprecedented jihadist and Tuareg rebel attacks in Mali, which, like Burkina Faso and the Sahel ally Niger, is also run by the military. Let's go to South Africa, where Bellarmine Mugabe, the youngest son of the former Zimbabwean leader Robert Mugabe, has been deported from. This comes following an order from a Johannesburg court. Bellarmine pleaded guilty to pointing a firearm and illegally being in South Africa earlier this month, after he was arrested following the shooting of a 23-year-old man at his home. Apart from being deported, Bellarmine has been ordered to pay a fine of $36,000, which he did before being allowed to leave South Africa. His co-accused and cousin Tobias Matohose, who pleaded guilty to attempted murder, illegal immigration, possession of ammunition, and defeating the ends of justice, was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Staying in South Africa, lawyer for anti-Western and pan-African activist Kemi Seba have denied accusations against him, saying he incited rebellion after backing a coup attempt in December. Seba, born in France to parents from Benin, was arrested earlier this month in South Africa alongside his 18-year-old son during an undercover police operation. Seba appeared in court in Pretoria on Wednesday as South African authorities navigate a complex case combining domestic immigration charges with international extradition requests.
If you look at the charges for outlines, the immigration charge, normally those are done pretty quickly, dealt with very quickly, but I think that they needed to create atmosphere, and I was taken a bit by surprise that even the application involving the first accused centered more around accused 2 than the first accused, so there's that atmosphere being created about how dangerous the man is, yet he's not been charged anywhere with any level of dangerous or violent crime. So I think there's that being done by the state intentionally. I mean, the affidavits are quite thick for an immigration charge. The reason the date is the 11th of May is purely because the state prosecutor is in High Court in another trial tomorrow. But we are confident, I mean, even given the allegations, that we have a strong defense to the allegations and a strong case for bail in that our client will be applying, well, has applied for asylum in South Africa.
Well, this was a scene yesterday in Johannesburg. Crowds gathered on the streets of one of South Africa's main cities to demonstrate against high levels of illegal immigration in the country. It was all part of a wider wave of protests, including in the capital, Pretoria, on Tuesday. Anti-immigration groups calling for strict enforcement of immigration laws and mass deportations. The protesters deny that they're being xenophobic. Our correspondent, Innocent Samosa, is in Pretoria. Innocent, we can see the massive crowds on the streets that have been protesting since Tuesday. What has been the nature of the protests?
Well, a very good evening to you, colleague, and our viewers, listeners at home. It's good to be alongside you. I mean, pretty much devastating news coming out of Pretoria and Johannesburg. But I must say that at the moment, the protests that we've seen were relatively peaceful. There were no major incidents reported, and we do know that, of course, shops remained closed in the CBD in Pretoria yesterday and in Johannesburg today, simply because people didn't want, because there are people who take advantage of these kinds of gatherings where they loot shops and so on, so to speak. But I think we basically did not see any element of any major incidents that were reported with regards to these protests. Where they were relatively peaceful, if you ask me, Amarachi.
And I noticed some of the people in the crowd are wearing traditional outfits. I mean, they have the toga on their heads, they have the traditional skirts, they're holding insignias showing they belong to different tribes. What does it mean when people dress like that and appear in a protest?
Well, it's very disappointing because it's not every, well, majority of them are wearing Zulu regalia, but again, it's disappointing because not all Zulus subscribe to what these guys are currently doing right now. Because if you ask me, Amarachi, it does seem as though this is a fight of resources. It's a war of resources and competition on the ground. And now it goes back to what the government is not doing, which is service delivery, which is now having citizens now directing their anger to foreign nationals. And I think it's very much unfortunate that these people are protesting wearing a regalia of the Zulu speaking nation, because it's not everyone. Many people on the ground that I spoke to, they're saying that why can't they stop these people? Why are they doing this? They should allow the laws to take charge. Well, if you ask me again, Amarachi, I mean, there is that element of understanding that there is that need for people to be documented in the country, because if I mean, for their safety and for the safety of people around them, if anything happens to them, therefore they can be identified by. But those people who are doing that on the streets, they do not have the rights to terrorize people and be asking passports from these people. It's the law enforcement that are supposed to do that. So therefore, that's why I'm saying what they're doing is a good cause, but how they're carrying it, it's out of order. They are not allowed to do that. It's only law enforcement who are allowed to basically ask people to present their papers. So they're going about it the wrong way. So therefore, there is a need for the South African government to basically act on this, Amarachi.
Yes, and we haven't seen much movement from the government, in clamping down these processes. They are quite sizable. a lot of people, probably up to 100 or even more, came out to protest in the two cities. And wondering why they feel the need, to carry out a protest like this, and why they feel the need to implore on the government to clamp down on these illegal immigrants. I mean, they're coming through the borders, Innocent. Just for us to be certain, people are not coming via air. The air routes into South Africa. Most of the illegal migrations are taking place through the borders. South Africa being surrounded by countries like Zimbabwe, Malawi, and the rest of them. So it's quite easy to infiltrate, South Africa. But again, this is a group in South Africa that's taken it into its hands to do this for the government. How is the government responding to these protests?
Yeah, perhaps let me highlight what you said, Amarachi. You said clamp down on illegal migrants. And that's the language that the government is using in the country, clamp down. And when government says clamp down, people on the ground, they listen to that in a different way altogether. They now go and react and now be terrorizing people on the streets. So that is the challenge. The language of government, how they go about this, I think it's quite wrong. But they put up a statement today to say that they ask citizens that they should not take matters in their own hands. They should allow the laws of the country to take charge. And uh, um, uh, if you ask me, Amarachi, from where I'm sitting, I'm quite disappointed because they've not done really much to deal with this. These people who are doing such things, they should have been in jail long time ago. I think there's that level of thinking that perhaps, like I said earlier, when we had this conversation, earlier, that it is election year. So there
Right.
is that element where the government does not want to piss people. It does seem as though it's not popular to really speak against what people are doing on the ground. So it always emanates when there is the local government elections. So again, if you ask me, the government is not doing enough to really clamp down on this. These people should have been arrested long time ago, if you ask me, Amarachi, because the government made it clear that allow the processes, allow the courts, allow law enforcement to deal with these issues. But no, they're allowing these people to go on rampage and be terrorizing people on the streets. And the sad part is that if you have a darker skin, Amarachi, you are prone to these kinds of elements where you might be abused. They think that you're a foreigner because of your skin. So it just shows how much complex this issue is. So therefore, the government, there's little bit of there's less commitment from the government of South Africa in dealing with this issue, Amarachi.
So, exactly how do these people think that they are not xenophobic, Innocent? Because they're denying that these are xenophobic protests, because that is what they are. I mean, they're out on the streets against their fellow African brothers and sisters. How is this not xenophobic?
And that's the question that we've been asking ourselves, because it seems as though it's targeted to Black Africans, if you look at it, because I've not seen them targeting whites who
Right.
are undocumented, because we do know that there are white people who are undocumented in the country. There are
Right.
Chinese who are undocumented. There are Pakistanis who are, undocumented. So um, they say they're not xenophobic. They say that they want to deal with the illegal foreigners on the ground. They feel that the state is now under pressure in dealing with the issues of health, the issues of correctional services, the issues of education, because of the influx of foreigners in the country. But again, it does seem as though that is not really much holding water, because for me, I feel like this is a fight of resources. It's a fight of competition in the market. It's a fight because there's no service delivery. So
Right.
therefore, citizens are now redirecting their anger to foreign nationals. But it's a legitimate call again, Amarachi. It's a legitimate call. People should be documented in the country, but there is processes to deal with that.
Yeah.
Citizens are not allowed. Citizens they do not have the right to really do that, Amarachi.
Innocent, just quickly before you go, just yesterday, the communities, the African communities, did send a message to, their people saying they shouldn't come out to open their businesses, they should maintain a low profile. Where does the South Africa business community stand, as regards these protests and the violence that has been taking place against Africans, other Africans in South Africa?
In fact, Amarachi, the African Union ordinary fifth ordinary session of the African Union in transport and energy is meeting here in Sandton, and I was hoping that they will look at these things because it does deal with the issues of business, the issues of intra-Africa trade in the continent. So they've not touched on it. It's a very disappointing because now you have the business sector in South Africa that is mum about this issue, and there are foreigners in the country who are contributing to the GDP of the country. I mean, I sit here talking with you, Amarachi. I work for a foreign company, and that the salary that I get contributes to the to the country here in South Africa. So it's very disappointing again from the business
Yeah.
sector that they've not said anything. But I guess maybe they are waiting for for the government to take further steps. I don't know. It really does remains to be seen as to whether or not they'll issue a statement or not. But pretty much disappointing scenes here in the country, Amarachi.
Innocent, we do appreciate your reporting on this, and be sure that Channels TV does appreciate you. Do be careful out there, just in case. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, colleague.
A former French serviceman has been detained in Madagascar for allegedly taking part in a plot to destabilize the island. Prosecutor Nomi Narina Romansoa said the French national had been charged with multiple offences, including criminal conspiracy and plotting to sabotage infrastructure such as power lines and thermal plants. Speaking in a video statement on Tuesday evening, he said other accomplices, including a Malagasy army officer, had also been charged for the alleged plot set to be carried out on April 18. Madagascar's foreign ministry has also expelled a French diplomat for alleged involvement in destabilizing the country, which France has denied. The French foreign ministry responded by summoning Madagascar's chargé d'affaires in Paris to vigorously protest over the expulsion of its official, rejecting any accusations of destabilizing the regime. Well, here in Nigeria, the Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Disu, has recommended the dismissal and prosecution of ASP Nuhu Usman and other officers involved in the fatal shooting of Mr. Mene Ogidi in Efurum, Delta State on the 26th of this month. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Mr. Disu says the officers involved were immediately withdrawn from the Delta State Command and transferred to Force Headquarters Abuja, where they underwent expedited disciplinary proceedings. He explained that the Force Disciplinary Committee, alongside other internal mechanisms, concluded its investigation and found the principal officer involved acted in clear violation of Force Order 237 and other regulations governing the use of firearms, as his conduct was unlawful, unprofessional, and a breach of his duty to protect life and uphold the law. Mr. Dusu, while reiterating his zero-tolerance policy for extrajudicial killings and abuse of power, as the affected officers are expected to be handed over to the appropriate judicial authorities for prosecution. Well, we have good news from Kenya, don't we? Marathon star Sebastian Sawe, the first man to break the 2-hour barrier for the distance, received a hero's welcome on his return to Nairobi on Wednesday. There he is. He arrived at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and was greeted by traditional dancers and cheering fans, all excited to see him. Sawe posted a winning time of 1 minute, 59 seconds and 30, well, you know what that is, on Sunday, at the annual London Marathon for the 26.22-mile event. He was visibly moved as he shook hands and shared the historic moments with the crowd, saying, "All the things that we have done in London, I didn't do them myself, but as a team. This is a record for all of us. I would like to encourage us to continue having the strength to support the sport in general, and this will give us the courage to make our country proud." Well, Sawe later appeared at Kenya's State House, where President William Ruto welcomed him, praising his achievement as a milestone that made the impossible possible.
Sebastian, you have not only broken a record, you have expanded the horizon of human potential. You have done what many believed could not be done. You have made the impossible possible. And in so doing, you have inspired a nation, you have inspired a whole generation, and you have inspired the world. What makes this accomplishment even more extraordinary is that until just 2 years ago, you were not a marathoner. Yet since you stepped into the marathon stage in 2024, you have remained unbeaten. On your debut in Valencia, you recorded 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 5 seconds. The second fastest debut in history.
I want to say on behalf of the government of Kenya, Sebastian, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations for the win. It was not just your win, but a win for all of us, 55 million Kenyans. This win is also a global win, and therefore it has placed Kenya on the global map.
Kigali-based startup is giving banana waste a stylish second life by turning stems and leaves into fashion products using traditional methods while creating jobs for young Rwandans. Here at the company's workshop in the Eastern Province, we see staff spinning plant-based fiber on hand looms, traditional equipment with bags, sandals, and other artisanal items made from the eco-friendly yarn on display. Banitex went through trial and error to develop a suitable material for the textile industry while building a circular value chain that connects farmers, engineers, and designers. The startup buys discarded banana stems and leaves directly from local farmers, giving them extra income and turning one of Rwanda's key crops into something new. That's sure to be a hit. And before we go, our fun fact about Africa, we'll focus on South Africa, away from the politics and away from the attacks. That's a country currently celebrating 32 years of democracy. South Africa is the only country in the world to build and then dismantle its nuclear weapons program. Former President Frederick Willem de Klerk said the country had built 6 crude atomic bombs during a 15-year clandestine operation. Their scientists had already started on a 7th when South Africa decided to voluntarily dismantle its arsenal in 1989. And now you know. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.